end, and it basically was that, and well, we're not going to do it or else. And I just wanted to say, or else what, Riot? Or else what?
Oh, we are live, guys. How's it going? You just hopped into the middle of our little discussion there on
Perfect.
on a Riot. But welcome everybody to another episode of Rift Talks. As always, I'm your host Dave Troop, and joining me today for the second time, my good friend Chase. How's it going, sir?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me back. Pleasure to be here.
Of course. Anytime, dude. Especially right now with Worlds going on, I thought this would be a great time to get you back on the show. We can have some of our conversations regarding groups and all the action that transpired there, as well as the knockout stage that's about to come up this weekend. But, you know, there's so much to talk about. We don't have too much time, so let's hop right into the group discussion. Overall, really exciting group stage, I think. You know, a lot of the groups actually did come down to the wire. Like there was, you know, we had one playoff. We had one group that was determined on the very last game of the day. So that sort of stuff is always super exciting. What was your kind of overall impression of the group stage before we dive into like each individual group and what happened in the games and that stuff more specifically?
Yeah, you know, I think that we learned the lesson that we were expecting to learn heading into this, which is that there are 3 power regions and there's everyone else. Europe, China, and Korea look so much better than the rest of the pack. And, you know, I know North American fans, Team Liquid was meant to be the great hope there. I shared my concerns the last time I was here about the fact that they hadn't proven to me that they knew how to adjust when they were put on the back foot. And, God, that draft against IG in that last game was
bad.
Unbelievable. It's like my grandma knows not to give the shy Vladimir because I've literally Invictus is my favorite team and it's come up. It's the one thing she knows about them other than Rookie is a very good boy. And so like that's when she knows, I don't know how Team Liquid didn't know. And it's amazing to see us kind of making the same mistakes over and over and expecting a different result. And I understand, like, you know, people like Medios have pointed out, like, oh, thank goodness we have all these Twitter and Reddit analysts to tell us how to fix the region again, like that we do every year. And it's like, hey, maybe we wouldn't keep having this conversation if it didn't come up every year. Like, if you guys solved it, then it would be solved and we wouldn't talk about it. But you're not. And so people are trying to share insight because what you're doing won't work.
Yeah, some of these Twitter and Reddit analysts are actually right sometimes now. You know, there's a lot of nonsense on both those platforms. Don't get me wrong. I read as much stuff on both of those sites that makes me want to bang my head into the wall as like, you know, I see on the live stream from NA sometimes. But yeah, Liquid was that'll be an interesting conversation. All we can say for now is rip North America yet again. Just sad. There was so many issues in that game, but I think let's do this chronologically. So we'll start with Group B because that was the first group that finished. Because the other games are like a week ago now, right? So like, let's start with the games that are more recent. Because basically, what happened is every group played through the round robin the first time, and then the second round robin was all played in one day, and that kind of determined the group all in one fell swoop. So Group B, we had Fun Plus, Phoenix, and Splice making it out. I think
you tried so hard, buddy. I appreciate it. You really did your best.
I think. A lot of people, you know, at the start of the tournament, once this group was set, this was what people expected. But Splice played so horrifically terribly the first run through this round robin that a lot of people were like, well, is it maybe going to be J Team that makes it out? Or, you know, GAM honestly I think they were the worst team in the tournament. Like the amount of stuff they did, like even their first game in the second round robin against FPX, where I think they engaged onto the Nautilus or the Malphite like 3 times in a row. They're like, let's pick our team fight by engaging onto their super tank. This seems like a great idea. It looked to me like their whole strategy was let's hope that FPX on the Kaisa, or what's his name again? Oh my God, I just called him his team name. LWX? LWX, right? Yeah. On the Kaisa is going to suck as bad as he did against J-Team, and he'll just like kill himself and then we can win. But it just didn't work out like that at all because they would just blow all their engage on like the super tanks.
Yeah, I just want to put a number on that. Zen had the best KDA on GAM Esports with a whole 2.1.
Oh, Jesus.
That's where they were at. And that was against the weakest group. And that's one of those things where, like, at least GAM Esports got a win. There were 3 teams at this tournament who didn't. And if you wanted to make a case for HKA or for AHQ being the worst, I think that'd be fair. But this was not a good GAM team, and people who got hyped about them were hyped because Levi was a name that they recognized, even though it's been a year and a half, arguably 2 years, since he was very good. Sorry, guys, I don't make the rules. I saw his stats. He didn't look great. But yeah, I mean, I for one, I had J-Team getting out ahead of Splice. I just thought Splice looked a little bit lethargic in the play-ins. It looked like a team that didn't quite have the firepower to keep up. And I was just expecting for, Fofo. I expected it to be close. I expected it to go to a tiebreaker between the two of them, which we almost did get.
Yeah.
But that would have been, I was expecting Fofo to be the best player on the Rift for that match, and that was going to be what decided it. And instead, Vizicachi decided to shut me up and put together some of the best games he's had in years.
He played phenomenally. I was actually really happy for him because with the whole storyline being, Chachi, the guy who's played the most games and never made it to Worlds in the Europe LEC, congratulations, you're finally here. And he played really bad in the first round robin. It almost looked like the pressure was getting to him, but I felt like he settled into it really nicely on this first day of the group ends, so to speak. And I mean, that Cho'Gath, I think we saw it one more time. One other team played Cho'Gath after him, and it didn't look anywhere near as good. He was hitting crazy ruptures. He was getting his silences. He was basically unkillable on that thing. I was super, super impressed because that's not a champion that we expect to see really in the meta right now. And I know some people were talking about him maybe bringing Cho'Gath back into the meta, but I think it's such a difficult champion to actually get that utility from, but he did it beautifully.
Yeah, I think that he did a really great job of bringing out a diverse range of picks. If you were to look, despite them losing 2 of their first 3 games, he had the 3rd highest goal differential at 10 minutes of any top laner. Only the Shy and Wonder were more dominant in their lane, and those are teams that both give much more attention to their top lane than Splice necessarily does. A lot of Vizicachi's, yes, Xerxes does a very good job, I think, of getting his laners ahead, but a lot of those Vizicachi gains were self-earned, and I think that seeing his playmaking, seeing as soon as he was able to calm down, getting that out there, I think really came a long way. I mean, it's unfortunate who they'll be playing at the quarterfinals, and we'll get to that in a bit. But I think Europe can be happy with how that went down. Splice should be proud of getting as far as they did. Mm-hmm. I don't think losing to Fun Plus Phoenix in that tiebreaker says anything bad or harsh about them, as much as just Doinb finally remembered that he should be one of the best players in the world.
He looked like it.
He finally
on that
started
Renekton?
looking like it.
Oh my god, dude. That Renekton went absolutely beast mode. He played so well in that last game. But I think it was just kind of unfortunate because they were kind of trading ganks onto Gimgoon and Humanoid. And it just kept putting Doinb further ahead. And it just wasn't really doing anything in the top lane. And so you ultimately get to this mid-game state where he's super, super far ahead. And Chachi really just couldn't do as much with it as he probably should have been able to. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, they played really, really well earlier in the day. That last game, it just looked like they didn't match properly with what the composition that FPX was playing was. They probably needed to focus a little bit more on getting Humanoid ahead rather than kind of letting him fall so far behind.
Yeah, and this is where you ask yourself the question, because I can't decide if Group B is good or not. There are 2 ways of looking at this. The first is to say that Splice exceeded expectations, that Europe's better as a region than we think, and that Fun Plus Phoenix just needed a couple days to get used to it, that they had that LGD-style jitters at the beginning of Worlds, but eventually calmed down and remembered that they're good. Mm-hmm. Or this is the group of life. None of these teams are that great, and they're both about to get killed because they're playing against teams that had much harder roads to qualify and have been more battle tested, and I think have shown higher upside. I want to believe in Fun Plus because I really like Doinb. I think it is absolutely adorable that his wife was teaching people how to cheer in the stands. She was teaching them the Chinese cheers and what they meant. It was great. He has a dog that is adorable and just looks like a little puffy alien head that's wonderful. Want them to do well. But I just, if you told me, yeah, Fun Plus Phoenix, they're going to go 4-2, they're going to split with J-Team and Splice, I'd say, man, turns out Group B was really bad. And so I kind of feel like maybe that's where we're at, and we're just kind of, it's all relative to a certain extent. It's tough for me.
I'm definitely in that second camp. I mean, I think FunPlus Phoenix relies way too much on their team fight. In that last game, they did do a couple, like their jungle was exerting some pressure, and it was looking a little bit better overall in terms of their early game control. But overall, I think that they rely way too much on team fighting against, teams like G2 or SKT or any of these other teams that are like really, really strong all the way through the game. They're going to run into serious problems where they're just going to fall too far behind. Like even Damwon, I think, was just, I mean, we'll get to that in a minute, but I think that guy's fantastic, right? So I don't really know. I just don't really think that they're that good, ultimately. Like, I think that both of those teams are probably going to go out in the first round once we get there. Whether that's the case or not, obviously, we'll ultimately see. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that Group B was definitely the worst group in the tournament, which we all knew coming in. But I think that, people had definitely higher expectations for FunPlus Phoenix, other than I think Kelsey. Actually, Kelsey didn't like FunPlus Phoenix at all. She didn't have them as like one of her people that could win the tournament. And, you and I both know how big of a fan she was of the LPL. So that tells you everything you need to know right there.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is, like, the LPL proved themselves so far at this Worlds to be incredibly inconsistent. Like, the individual talent is undeniable. All the reasons that we were hype about China heading into Worlds haven't necessarily changed, but that weakness that we had in 2017, 2016, et cetera, of them not always being able to put it together came to the forefront. This FunPlus team did not look as dominant as they honestly should have against this level of opponent. RNG doesn't get out, and IG, I made me nervous until that final game for sure as an IG fan. So I think sometimes you just got to ask, like, going from a best of 1 to a best of 5, does that help or hurt? Because if you're a Chinese team like FunPlus, you can afford to lose a game because you just had that mental boom game where things implode early on because you went too aggressive and it didn't work, or you tried some unconventional draft and whatnot. Like, you still can bounce back. And FunPlus is a team that in best of 5s looked better than what we saw here. Is that, like, when we expand that, is the inconsistency going to matter as much? Is going to be kind of the fascinating storyline as far as evaluating where China's strength as a region is compared to Korea and compared to Europe.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, ultimately, we'll get to this a little bit more detail when we talk about the knockout, the quarterfinals. But I think Fnatic's just a really bad matchup for them. Just with how aggressive they like to play early game, I think it's going to be a rough first series. All right, so let's move on to the next group. Group A, I believe, was the second group that finished. What did you think about Group A overall? I mean, obviously, I think for me, the weirdest thing in this group was how bad Cloud9 was. I think a lot of people had higher hopes for C9 heading into this tournament, and they did a lot of weird stuff. Like, they started Blabber 2 of their first 3 games, which I thought was a gigantic mistake, honestly. I understand it. Like, we want to play the Elise. He's a one-trick Elise. Let's use this. But ultimately, I just think he wasn't, like, the early game was fine, and then in the mid to late game, they would just kind of completely collapse. And, in the second rotation of games, like, they lost both games before 5 minutes. Like, it was actually unbelievable how quickly those games were just over. Like, everything after the 10-minute mark was a formality, essentially.
Well, and I will say, I didn't have much faith in Cloud9 just because I think the two teams that were better than them were so clearly better than them.
Yeah, definitely.
But look, honestly, I don't mind the Blabber thing. I think, honestly, I'd like to see more teams make use of the substitutes that we have. Blabber is such an aggressive early game focused jungler. When you know that it's possible that they bring him out, you have to split your prep time against Cloud9 because you have to be ready for Blabber and you have to be ready for the slower approach that Svenskeren has. It's a little bit more objective focused. You don't necessarily have, you have a versatility there that immediately has to be taken into account whenever people try to strategize against you and figure out how it is they want to play things out. You can't necessarily rely on scrim results quite as easily as you can if it's something that's going to be different. So those kinds of things I think can be helpful. And I thought Blabber played well when he was in. I don't think he was the problem at all. I think the problem is that Niski looked like crap.
Oh, he did.
And I think So, well, and that's the thing. I was gonna lead into that because that's kind of the ending point for me for Cloud9. Niski, I feel like you can explain that he was bad by the fact that he is a young player who had never played in an international event before and was clearly caught up in the moment and the pressure of being against a guy like Caps and Faker, which I get it, you know?
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough for sure.
Sneaky, I think it's time. I think it's time. I think you've got a great streaming career ahead of you. I think you've got a great girlfriend who cares for you very, very much and is very proud of you all over social media. You've got a team that will support you until the end of your days and allow you to be a prominent streamer that they will push. And, you know, you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah,
I feel
I'm with you. I think it's time.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to be like too much of the body language doctor because that always gets into like, I'm not a mind reader, but I do feel like we saw this a little bit with the hashtag benched controversy in 2018, right? Like, he is not someone that necessarily is as hungry as a guy like a Deathly who's new to this and who hasn't had those experiences. I think that, you know, he's been around for a very long time, slowly kind of getting a little bit worse season by season as other people have caught up and surpassed him. And I think that it's one of those things where, like, if you're Cloud9, I don't think you can say goodbye without, you know, like, if it wasn't on his terms, like, the last thing you want is for Sneaky, the face of your franchise, the most beloved player possibly ever in North American League of Legends. Like, you have to treat that guy well on the way out. So if Sneaky wants to play, chances are he's going to keep playing. But there's a cap. If Sneaky is your bot laner in the current international game, there's a cap on how far you're going to be able to go. Yeah. And I think that Licorice is too good to have so little on the bottom half of the map to open him up to do the things that Licorice needs to do. Because once he gets that space, he looks very good. He's a guy that they can build around and make the cornerstone of their franchise. And, you know, Niski played very well in the regular season. I think next time at an international event, he'd do better. I don't see the world in which Sneaky gets much better than what we saw here.
No, I mean, and for me, like, I think this kind of ties back into my blabber point a little bit. They were putting, you know, Sneaky on mages, which he's never been good at. Like, this has kind of popped up before in his career, and he's a marksman AD carry. You know, like, you need to put that guy on actual ADC champions. And the fact that they were trying to put him on mages and throw in blabber a couple times, to me, it felt like this Cloud9 team actually had zero confidence in themselves and was trying to get, like, cheese victories. You know, like, oh, let's throw in blabber on the Elise. We'll throw in Sneaky on a mage. You know, we'll, like, free up the support to roam really early, because that's essentially what mages are there for, is to, like, push in lane, keep it in push, and allow your support, like, unlock your support from bottom lane as early as possible to get that roaming and those early plays going with blabber. That makes a lot of sense, except what that tells me is you have no confidence in your ability to win straight up, right? When you're doing that every game. So I think Cloud9's with you. I think C9 is probably going to put Sneaky to bed. You know, he's had an insanely long career. He's been around North America since the first, like, he's the only member of that original C9 God Squad left, right? Everybody else is long gone.
First ballot Hall of Famer. When the Hall of Fame is made, and there will eventually be one, Riot is too much in love with the kind of ceremony of that. It will happen, and he's going to be first ballot, and he should be damn proud of that. And nothing that happened at this World takes away from who he is and what he's done.
No, I agree completely.
But it's time.
It's time to move on. Glad we agree there. I was really afraid I was going to bring all this up and you were going to be like, nope, I think he needs to keep playing. And then the fact that you brought it up, perfect.
Yeah,
we're on the same wavelength. But yeah, it was a rough shake for them with G2 and Griffin. Honestly, I was kind of surprised. Like, Griffin didn't necessarily look that good the first round robin. But they played phenomenally well, and I mean, they made G2 look not so good in the last couple of games of that group, and like the last game of the group, and then the tiebreaker for first place.
Yeah, no, and it's fun for me, you know, Griffin somehow, despite being a Korean team that got to the finals and won the regular season in back-to-back splits, entered this with some nobody believes in us theory. Like, somehow people were like, oh, this Griffin team, like, they can't play in best of fives, they can't they can't handle these kinds of situations. I blew me away that we were saying this as if it wasn't for they played more than 2 best of 5s against SK Telecom, a team we all agree is really good. Like maybe that isn't the judgment of their ultimate ceiling. And then all the stuff with CV Max starts popping up, and the whole thing between them and management and the coach, and all of this just kind of sucks. Like it's terrible that this happened. We still have a lot to learn in terms of he said, she said, who said. Lots to still sort out.
Yeah.
But
we won't get any of that until after the championship's over either.
But the fact that CV Max keeps going into it, like during this biggest part of the year for his players when they've asked him not to on multiple occasions, and now it's like it keeps escalating. People are like, oh, that's too much for them. Right? That is the breaking point for a team like this. There's too much pressure, too much important things kind of on the horizon there. And they pushed past it. They pushed past all of that. And in fact, they looked better as this stuff unfolded. I think they've got that kind of FU mentality. Like, you're going to try to submarine us before the biggest event of our year. Like, you're going to try to tear us down and tell us what we can't do without you. We'll show you what we can do without you.
Yeah.
And that fire's awesome. I love that. I love that for these players. I love that for, the Griffin fans who, of course, haven't asked for any of this, right? Like, they're just so excited to finally see this team on the international stage. And I think that they put their best foot forward at the end there. I do, as far as like, are they better than G2? I kind of go back and forth. G2 tweeted the whole like, oh man, can't wait to go 6-0 before the game started, right? And it seemed they had a very relaxed demeanor. They knew ultimately that they had already gotten through. I don't think they took the first game as seriously. I think they took the tiebreaker seriously, but at that point, they were reeling from the fact that they had lost.
Yeah. It was kind of weird, too, because they basically just tried to take Griffin's comp from the last game. We're like, we'll just take the same champions you took. See, it's not you guys. It was the comp. And then they took Zoe bot lane for some... Like, what the hell was that? And then it just all went to shit. Like, they just got absolutely destroyed.
Happy little drafts. That's all that is, right?
Oh, God. That was so weird. And I think in the first game they played, like, Jankos, like, normally he's so good, but I think he made a couple early mistakes. He got killed both, like, 2 times pretty early on. That set him behind. And then all of a sudden, their team's got all this extra gold. No one's worried about the counter gank because now you can win any fight where your jungler's there, right? So that kind of completely changes the pace of how you're going to approach the game. But they still do play very slow.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's interesting to think about what G2 is going to do next. I think that G2 is a team that has openly said they like to push people, push the meta forward, push these weird picks forward. This is something that they've always made a priority to try this stuff, because now's the time to try it, right? Because if it doesn't work, oh well. Like, now we found out now we adjust and get it out of the way and move on. And there is some value in that. I do think that finding that diversity and what works and what doesn't is good. I just think that you have to ask this question of, like, are they trolling? Are they trying something that's high variance and they're aware of that? Or are they trying something that they thought would work and didn't because they're not quite as good at executing it as they think? And I think all of those things have been true for G2 at various points, even just in this group stage. So it's kind of hard for me to say. I think that I hope that in a best of 5 with elimination on the line, with that world's title in their grasp, and they're going to take things more seriously. And we saw early in the world's group when they were taking things very seriously and drafted meta, they were stomping some people. They
looked really, really clean the first couple of days of action.
And if you believe that G2 is the type of team to try some silly things and to take things slightly less on point, then that's the team that you believe is going to show up in the best of 5s. And certainly that's what EU fans will be hoping for.
Well, they've always looked really good in best of 5s too. Like, I think G2 and Liquid are kind of similar in that regard, where, best of 1s is one thing and they can usually do pretty well, at least in their region, for best of 1s. But you put that team into best of 5, and that's when they start to really show you how good they are at adapting, figuring out what went wrong, changing it, moving things around. But the fact that they did drop 2 games, because for me, the way I would have wanted to see that approached is, okay, pretend this is a best of 3. let's, even though we don't have a third game, like let's just say if we win this game, we win the best of three, right? How do we change things to make this work? And the fact that they lost the second game too, where you're right, they could have just been kind of trolling, like, oh, let's just play your comp and we'll throw Zoe bot lane. Like I still don't understand that.
I think they think it like when I say trolling in that case, I genuinely think Perks looked at Grabs and said, I got this. I can do this. I'm good enough at this champ. I was really good at it back in the day. Like, just give me now. And whether you think that's trolling, I think depends on your definition of trolling. Is it the most serious pick that could have been done? Probably not. Do I believe that G2 believed that pick could win the game? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Because I 100% believe that Perks went into that like, oh, I'm so good at Zoe. Just give me the pick. It'll be fine. And let's find that out now. Let's find that out before we get into best of fives. That the answer is don't. Please don't.
Well,
don't
I guess if your goal is to win the whole tournament and you really legitimately believe like, hey, we're the best team in this tournament. As long as we're in the knockout stage, doesn't matter what seed we have. Doesn't matter who we're going to play, we're going to beat them. Then it doesn't really matter. But they do have a very interesting matchup that, I'm excited to break down in a little bit. We're going to have to keep moving through these groups. The one thing I want to say before we move out of Group A, though, Hong Kong Attitude was trash, but shout out to 3Z for that Gangplank double kill. Oh, my God.
That was fun. That was great.
That was sir, you get, a golf clap for that. Your team was trash, but that one play alone, like that's going into some montages. That was a crazy, crazy play.
The LMS montage is that play, 3 Fofo games, and we're done. And that's it. That's the entirety of the highlight package.
Pretty much. It's pretty sad, but it is what it is. Okay, Group C. Group C. Let's see here. This is another.
God, I saw you there.
Right? This is another interesting group. Obviously, with Fnatic and Royal Never Give Up. I think that's where a lot of people were kind of doing a coin flip. Like, I saw a lot of people that thought Fnatic was going to get through based on that. Well, G2 is the best team in the world, and Fnatic always plays them so intensely. Then, Fnatic should be one of the other best teams in the world. Therefore, they'll come through this group. Or a lot of people who thought, Royal Never Give Up, Uzi especially. He's just too good. We got to. You can't bet against him. I think I think probably 95% of the brackets I saw from knowledgeable people, if not 100%, were putting SKT through. So it was really just that coin flip on Fnatic where I'll never give up. Were you surprised that Fnatic were the team that made it out? I'm not going to lie, I kind of was. I honestly thought, especially after the first iteration of games, that we were going to see Royal coming through this group.
Yeah, so I predicted RNG to get out over Fnatic, and the reason why ultimately was that Reckless had not proven that he could play in a game against Uzi without losing his mind, because he's on record as
1-9 or something all time against him.
Yeah, well, Reckless is on the record saying like Uzi is his role model. He's the guy who taught him how to play the position. He's the best that they've ever had, et cetera, right? And when you believe that, right, it changes the way you play against someone. If there was a great comment. I think it was Mithy who did the draw, right, for the groups. And when he calls Xerxes and Faker, they're the two left. Xerxes does the handshake, walks off the stage, immediately goes to the EU ref and is like, "Oh my God, Faker just shook my hand," and that's like a very natural, reasonable thing for people that have been watching this game. Like, Xerxes grew up in League of Legends watching Faker win these kinds of games. It is understandable that those influences would be there. But when you believe that someone is that good, well, I better play safe because I know how good they are. I know they'll punish me if I make a mistake. So I have to be careful. I have to play not to lose, and that is a death sentence almost every time.
Oh, yeah.
And
that is how you lose.
Yeah. And so that was, to me, like Reckless's biggest problem against Uzi, is he just didn't play his lanes aggressively. He would back off. He would give way too much space. And that didn't happen in the deciding game. Reckless had no problem getting up in his face. And, I want to give a lot of credit there to Hillisane, who has performed well beyond my expectations on the international stage. He's been forcing Reckless to keep up with the kind of aggression that he's bringing to the bot lane. And I think that he's enabling in that way, I think, a lot of Reckless's best traits. And so, you got to that point. You beat SKT. I was expecting Fnatic and RNG to split and for it to go to a tiebreaker. But because Fnatic got the win against SKT, we never got that third game.
Yep.
It's hard to say who would have won that third game. I think both of those teams are very tough. I think you played that series 100 times. It's probably like a 51-49. But Fnatic were the ones who got it here, and they got that win against SKT when it mattered.
Yeah.
Though I will 100% admit, and Fnatic fans, maybe this was good. I did not watch those games live because I watched them play Clutch and said, well, they look terrible. This is over. I'll wake up to RNG being on. And then I woke up and they'd beaten SKT, and I'm like, I don't know how the same team had both of those games. But
yeah, it was night and day. It was because that Clutch game, you're right, looked awful. It looked scrappy. It looked like two bad teams, and one of them had to win because the game doesn't let the game end with nobody winning. So that's what happened. Yeah. And then against SKT, like shout out to Nemesis, his Vigar, unbelievable. Like that it completely prevented SKT from being able to engage. It made Faker's Akali essentially useless. That was a fantastic counter pick that was executed perfectly. So huge shout out to Nemesis there for that game, because that was really, really good. And definitely if that Fnatic shows up, like that's the team that I think, like, okay, if they show up like that, if they show up against Clutch, like they played against Clutch, OnePlus Phoenix is going to roll through them. If they showed up the way they played SKT, it's a different story, my friend.
Friendly reminder that 4 of the 5 people on Fnatic were Worlds finalists in 2018. Yep. I've been saying this since the beginning of the year. Like, I understand spring wasn't as sharp as most people were expecting, but there's a lot of talent on this roster that has a lot of experience playing together on an international stage. That was a team that did not cave under the pressure of a must-win game against RNG. And meanwhile, RNG, I have no idea what they do, because there's no way Uzi does not suffer failing to get out of the group stage. Like, this has never happened in Uzi's career. He is going to be furious, I imagine, because he played insane. He had some of the best stats of the entire tournament. He is still the leader in the bot lane at multiple different stats. And I just, like, I don't know what you're supposed to do. If you average a 375 gold differential at 10 minutes and are doing 37.2% of your team's damage, 37.2%. To put that in perspective, Sneaky was the second highest at 27.5%.
Yeah,
37.2.
It's insane.
What could he have done?
They do funnel a lot into him, though. Like, what I wonder is if maybe Uzi goes, okay, let me get another really top tier player, but take a little bit, because if you notice, like, he always had so much extra farm over the other AD carry. And, sometimes you go, oh, look, well, that's just because he's that much better. And if, when you actually watch the game or break it down, it's like, well, yes, he is a phenomenal player, but he's also being given, like, he'll go farm bot, recall, go farm top. Whereas another team will send one of their other solo laners to go farm that additional lane. And so he is kind of slightly taking gold from one of his teammates in that way. And I think with this iteration of RNG, it was fine because there was nobody else who really deserved the gold. But I think if you give him another player that deserves some of that gold to be able to carry and kind of alleviate some of the pressure, because I think this Worlds hasn't been like an ADC-centric meta either, right? Like, we're seeing a lot of Xayah and Kai'Sa, and those are really the only 2 ADCs that are worth it. Like, I think him playing Ezreal was a mistake. Even though, he played fantastic Ezreal, don't get me wrong. It's just Ezreal's more of a team carry champion. Like, it's really hard to 1v5 with Ezreal. You just don't do enough flat damage, especially if the game goes past the 25-minute, 30-minute mark.
Man, and the irony of that, because in 2015, Uzi got himself in controversy because he refused to play Ezreal in a scrim and said that he's like, that's a top champ. I'm not doing that. Like, put me on carries or I'm not going to play. And now, of course, he's finally being the team guy. And I'll put it this way, right? Like, you talk about gold share, certainly. But let's compare him to the other team that, like, had a similar gold breakdown to RNG, which was Team Liquid. Double Lift had 29.0% of his team's gold and did 25.5% of his team's damage. Uzi had 30.4% of his team's gold for 37.2% damage. So even among people with similarly high gold counts, like, he was the highest, but his efficiency on that return was huge. The problem is that you gave Lang X 22.4% of the gold, and he only did 22.8% of your damage, and that's like that was your second highest. You didn't Zhao Hu didn't get a lot to work with, and Lang X wasn't capitalizing on what he was given, and so that's where I point to like. I just feel like their plan around Uzi to draw attention to the solo laners was where they screwed up. I don't think that it was necessarily the idea of like, should they have taken a less all-in approach for Uzi? Because I think Uzi did what you could ask of him. But like when it became clear that that wasn't going to be enough, why wasn't Zhao someone that they fell back on? Why isn't it like if you don't trust him in that moment after everything he's been to your team for years, why is he still there? Like should have get off the pot.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that they have to. I think that team needs to make some roster changes. Like, I just don't think that like Uzi needs better people around him because I honestly still think he's the best ADC in the world. I've had him at that number one position for years now. I'm really sad that we don't get to see Forgiven compete because I think that's another player that's just absolutely ridiculous with how good he is. But Double Lift gets thrown into that category quite a bit, and I think as you rightly pointed out. He's just, like there's the S tier and then there's the A+ tier, and Double Lift's in the A+ tier. Whereas Uzi's kind of like all by himself in that S tier. Maybe there's a couple of other people who've been in there for brief periods, but he's been there the whole time, right?
Yeah. I mean, you look at, I think the answer right now for best bot laner in the world is Viper, because Viper does the crazy damage that he does on one of the lowest gold percentages of any bot laner you're going to see out there.
Yeah.
Like he is the prototypical do more with less guy. Uzi gets everything, and you have to wonder, like, how many top-tier bot laners, if given all of those resources, would be able to do similar things if you put all the eggs in that basket, ideal conditions 100% of the way. Yes, Mr. Uzi, whatever you say, Mr. Uzi, like, could it be replicated? I'm not sure. I am sure there's a reason other people don't. And I do think Uzi at this point in his career should know that he can't win it on his own. That was something that he's talked about in interviews for the last couple of years now. And so was this a stake problem where like a coaching thing came into play where he didn't trust the rest of the team? Is he following back on bad habits? I don't know. I think we're going to continue to follow that story. But things are going to change because RNG is an org that this is not going to be an acceptable result for them.
No. I mean, he very much reminds me of Double Lift in that way, where it's like, Double Lift has said similar things, like, I can't all be about me. And I think on TSM, he did a good job of that, where he had Bjergsen and he had other teammates where he's like, okay, this guy can actually play his lane and he can carry just as hard as I can. But I think with these players, and I can't fault them, like the only way you get to be this good is by having an ego, right? You know how good you are. And if you think my teammates just suck, like I flat out, like I know for a fact, like being objective, that their top laner is better than my top laner and their mid lane is better than my mid lane. If given equal resources, my guys are going to get outplayed. Why don't I just they're going to get outplayed anyway. Why don't I just take more for myself, make sure I can significantly outplay instead of just slightly outplay their bot lane and see if we can make up the difference there. But I think you're right. Like overall, it hasn't been a winning strategy. There is a reason it's a team game. You need the whole team to be competent and be in a solid position to move forward with the game. And the amount of resources he takes, even though he does, as you put, like he is so efficient with them and he does get so much done. You need some people to maybe take 1% less gold or 2% less gold, give that to one other player that can actually utilize that way more effectively than any of his current teammates can, and maybe now you have a winning combination.
Right.
Okay, Group D is the last group, the group of North America's demise. So Team Liquid was, a lot of people had Team Liquid at number 1 in this group, which I thought was laughable because if you go back a couple of episodes, guys, you can catch me on this show saying, here's the deal. If Damwon gets into this group, Liquid's not making it out. And lo and behold, Damwon gets put in this group, Liquid doesn't make it out. I mean, Canyon looked so good in this whole group stage. Like, I didn't realize that him, Showmaker, and Naguri were 1-3-5 on a US solo queue right now.
Dude, Showmaker is, to me, like one of the best players in the world right now. He's been criminally underrated if you aren't following Korea on a week-to-week basis. I think if you're a Korean, it's like you've been following that team. Like the solo lanes on that Damwon roster have been incredible and have carried a bot lane in Nuclear and Barrel that has been very mixed, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah,
like,
Ellis has them as the worst bot lane in the LCK.
Yeah, and I'm not sure he's entirely wrong. Nuclear isn't very good, but it doesn't matter when your solo laners are that strong and your junglers that constant, because you couldn't afford to put that much attention towards putting Nuclear down. You had to deal with the fact that Showmaker and Nukari were going to run out of control if you didn't. And Canyon did such an incredible job getting to them to that point. Mm-hmm. So it's like you have to match. And, you know, for a team like Team Liquid, that's very hard for them to do. It's not the way that they like to play the game out. They did do it once, and that's good. But they had to play IG twice. And I think IG clearly learned from their losses at MSI to Team Liquid. Team Liquid did the exact same thing that I was afraid they were going to do, which is that they didn't adjust to their opponents because they've never felt like they had to. And they played a composition that was good for what they like to do without considering the strengths that it gave their opponent. And IG has the Shy, who played out of his goddamn mind this whole tournament.
Him and Rookie have both been phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. And Rookie, I knew going in was going to. The Shy had more ups and downs recently, I think. So it was very refreshing as an IG super fan who still has IG World Champs as my name in my Discord. It was very nice to see that. I'm still worried about our jungler situation. I feel like Leon is just too weak in the early game.
Oh, he's awful. Like I don't like to be blunt, but like he didn't do a single flashy on Gragas. Not one.
Yeah.
My friend's in gold. He does that. In North America gold.
See, yes, and that implies you feel better about Ning, which I'm not sure as an IG fan. I mean, I kind of do, but Ning also will at least twice a game do the dumbest thing you've ever seen. Now, for different reasons, it's an over-aggression versus an under-aggression. And I think IG successfully realized when they went into the second half of the games that they needed that aggression, that Leon was just too slow for where the meta is, and that it wasn't enabling the Shy in particular to play the way that he wants. You could tell how much more fun the Shy has when he knows Ning is going to be hard camping for him. And Rookie's perfectly fine with letting his top laner carry the day anyway. So all of that is to say, you know, Liquid was always going to have a tough matchup against Damwon. They needed to show us that they could do something different against IG, and it seems like they just assumed that what worked at MSI and what's worked for them in NA was going to work here, and it didn't. And it sucks because, like, you know, I cover the LCS. I've been to the studio. I've talked to these people. I feel for Doublelift, a guy who has come so close so many times, and you can't look at this world and say that he didn't do everything he needed to do. It was Jensen and it was Impact. It was
Jensen played so bad. I mean, for somebody who consistently helped C9 get through this group stage, right? Like Jensen, I feel like was one of the rocks that Cloud9 relied on. And now you put him on Liquid. And like, I'm sorry, but that last game, LeBlanc into Kiana, feeds a solo kill, then goes bot. Like after Kiana roams top, gets another kill, then they both roam bot. And if you look at the pathing, he goes through a pink ward in the tri-bush, knows that he can't realize it. He goes, oh, Kiana's off the map. Let me just walk back through the same pink ward. Like, why wouldn't he have W'd over the wall to where his teammates were and retreat through bot lane safely? Instead, he just feeds another kill. Like, it was
great.
I was tilted. I was tilted watching it. I had a
wonderful time. It was awesome. I really enjoyed that decision of his. No, look, I think that Jensen is a guy that we've talked about before, is a little bit more of an emotional player, right? When he played for Cloud9, there was a pressure of like, I need to win an NA title. And he would sometimes struggle in playoff matches. We still talk about that Echo game, which is unfortunate for him. I'm sure he'd love for people to let it go. But
not happening, Jensen.
It's never going to. And so that that was what he was like in those moments. But then in North America, like, he had such a talented team around him. I don't think he had those same anxieties. But now you go to Worlds, Now you're the number 1 seed. You're a pool 1 seed. You are the best team North America has ever had. We had that segment on this podcast the last time I was here.
Yeah.
A lot of people, as you said, putting them first. A lot of people saying that this was a team that could get to finals. This was a team that could contend. They got to the finals in MSI. That's a lot more weight. That is a lot more weight than when Cloud9 was at Worlds and no one expected anything from them. And they were doing terribly in scrims. And so they just said, well, screw it. Either we'll play our game. It doesn't matter. We expect nothing. No pressure. Jensen, when he is not in that perfect environment, there's just something about that spot where he just doesn't seem to bring out his best. And I hope that he can figure that out, because that sucks. I would have loved to see the Jensen that we know he can be, because we know he is a better player than that. But he was clearly trying to force things. He was clearly trying to do, a mess.
And for me, that says a lot, because clearly he's an incredibly talented mid lane player. There's no doubt about that. But at least from what I've seen in esports, not just League, like all esports, there's and in life in general, there's 2 types of people I find. Like people that when the pressure's on, they step up to the plate, and people that when the pressure's on, they crumble, right? Now some people do manage to make that transition. They manage to learn to cope with the pressure and become thrive under it instead of die under it. But I feel like it's a very small percentage. Like most people, that's like a personality thing, and they'll either step up when it's, time to do that, or they're going to back away from it. And the people who, I feel like Jensen unfortunately falls into that latter camp, and it's too bad, because I think to be at the top of any sport or any esport or anything like that, you need to respond in that when the lights are brightest. That's what the game's all about, right? And it's one thing to be a great laner in North America during, the regular season when the games don't mean that much, or in a situation like that Cloud9 team where you're not on a good team, at least internationally. It's not a team that anybody has in their top 4 at Worlds. So yeah, there's no pressure on you. Just go out there and play. Versus, okay, you clearly can do that. So now we're going to put you on a team that has a legitimate shot, and you become a shell of yourself. That puts you into this real catch-22 situation where it's how do we put you onto a top team that has these expectations, because you're not, it doesn't seem like you make the most out of it. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with this current iteration of Team Liquid. I mean, I think Xmithy has to go, personally.
I don't think you can or should do that. I like Xmithy a lot. And of course, I think it comes down to what it is you're looking for. There's no North American player with the intangibles that he has. He is one of the most intelligent shot callers that North America has ever produced. This is a guy that Cody Sung said taught him how to play the bot lane. He has taught people how to play positions other than his own, because he has such a deep understanding of how very, individual mechanics play out, and kinds of, when to make what rotations at what spot. The Team Liquid system worked as well as it did because they had him as the leader who could make these calls and do these things. If you remove the shot caller,
that's always a mess.
It's a concern, so you end up in this situation where I always like to call this the young buck core area now, where you have a player who's too intelligent to not be on your team, but is not talented enough mechanically to necessarily match up with the level of competition. I mean, maybe that's the answer. Maybe, you look at where they can fit them. I mean, they have a great coaching staff, but there's always potentially room for a guy like that. It's in play. I think there's more in him. I'm not ready to write him off yet, just because I think that he was the best jungler in North America for a good chunk of the year.
Yeah.
I think the thing we might have learned from this is that North America isn't good, and we should stop holding them to that standard unless we want to. I mean, yeah, but people believed in Team Liquid. We're not stop it. Don't stop believing in these teams. The evidence is there to back it up. At this point, it will be awesome if they prove us wrong, but we should assume that this is the level that they're at. And at that level, they're 4-time defending champions. I think the idea that they need to move anybody when they're 4-time defending champions and we're runner-ups at MSI, I think that's a little bit too far.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I understand that people are not going to be happy with that answer. Because
I just
that you're not going to get farther than this. To which I say, yeah, Yeah, that is what I'm implying.
Yeah, so for me, it's like I want North America. I want us to have one team that can compete. You know, like a couple of years ago, people were saying that Europe and North America were on the same level. Now Europe is clearly leaps and bounds ahead of us. And whether that was ever true, that we were on the same level, you know, that's up for debate.
Yeah.
But at least it was a like legitimate debate you could have that didn't sound like crazy talk. Now it doesn't feel like that, and that kind of bothers me. So I would like to see, you know, maybe like maybe this Blabber kid, like see what he could do with this team. I don't know. Just for me, it's like he clearly, like when you watched Canyon play versus watched Nick Smithy, like Canyon beat him to every fight, out like didn't lose a single smite battle, stole shit. Like it was unbelievable how good he was. And then you compare that to Smithy, who, like you say, yeah, he's a shot caller, he's an intelligent player, but good God, man. Like, there's just a night and day difference, right?
I mean, yeah, here's the stat that kind of puts it in perspective. North America, 52.2% jungle control rate during the regular season, significantly higher in the playoffs. Smithy dominant there. Here at Worlds, 48% jungle rate. It's just like that is a 4 to 5 degree drop, depending on how you want to round. That's not great.
Yeah,
that seems like
North American junglers are trash, and this is kind of the big problem that I think people like Smithy have. That he's, like you say, he's a cerebral player, he's really, really good, but we don't have the level of intelligent junglers and intelligent players in our region, in our solo queue, on the other teams in the LCS that can challenge him all season long, the way that somebody like Canyon or some of these other junglers will, right? And so when he gets stuck playing against these guys, like he's never seen this sort of stuff before. He's never seen players that are this on it. He's not used to being pushed this far into his limit, right? And because of that, it always comes back to NA solo queue. It always comes back to NA solo queue. Our solo queue is meaningless. It sucks, and it doesn't give our pros good enough practice, and it's just really unfortunate. We just don't have the talent, I don't think, in this region to the dedication, I guess.
This is why I really love all of the people throwing out ideas of let's make it so that Latin American players and Oceanic players don't count against the import limit. Expand the size of the server. If the server is not going to be larger naturally, because it's League of Legends is not going to grow significantly in North America in 2019. Those guys are playing Fortnite. Like, sorry, that's just where North American gaming culture is kind of gone to a large extent. They're playing Fortnite or Call of Duty.
Call of Duty I can live with. Fortnite.
Yeah, we could do an entire podcast on Fortnite if you want to some other time. But yeah, look, I
host a Fortnite show. It's even funnier.
Yeah, it's not going to get better until you find a way to increase the number of people who are competing and get them the resources that they need. Like that's the way it's going to have to be. It's not going to happen from just praying that it will happen. You know, like the servers aren't going to get better because this country isn't built that way from an internet infrastructure standpoint. Sorry, but it isn't. You can say
just even the current player population, like the amount of people that take, like, so my roommate just got back from Korea. He was just there for like a month. And he was talking about how he just played a couple games in like gold there. And he was like, this is so much better. These people are like clearly somewhat thinking about what they're doing. Like just at every level, people seem to care more about the game. Like I just feel like apparently North America actually has the biggest population of people who don't play ranked. Like we have a lot of players. So a lot of us don't play ranked. And I think he just said something that in North America, a lot of people view games purely as like a let's have fun exercise. Whereas I think games should be fun. Don't get me wrong. That's the whole reason to play them. But at least, you know, for me, I've always thought that a key component to playing a game is to see yourself get better at it. Watch yourself improve. Like you can use it as one of the many things in your life where you're like, hey, I'm better at this today than I was yesterday. This is a positive. This is me moving life in like a positive direction, right? Even if it's something as, you know, seemingly trivial as moving up in ELO or getting better at a game, like that's something that's somewhat difficult to do. You can take some pride in that you're actually accomplishing something. And I feel like a lot of people with a game like League just are like, oh, let's just queue up for ranked and we'll see what happens. Or let's just queue up for normal. And they like, you know, the amount of people I know, like I have friends from school personally that were bronze when we went to university and like in, you know, first and second year. And by the time we graduated, they had played thousands and thousands and thousands of games and they were still bronze 5. And it's like, how is that like, that shouldn't be possible. It just should not be possible.
Yeah, that's bad. Even for me, a bad player, that's not great. Oof.
Like and it's just it's a mentality thing, I think. But I don't know how to like. I think that gets into a whole bunch of cultural questions and how do North Americans prioritize things and what are that's a whole can of worms that we could discuss forever. We've already been going on for a while, so I kind of want to like get into the meta a little bit before we take a quick look at some of these series that we're going to see. Did you have any closing thoughts or any final things that you want to say about any of the groups, any of the teams that we didn't touch on, anything like that overall before we kind of get into the meta talk?
I think everything that I would want to say, we're gonna get into when we talk about the quarterfinals. So let's talk meta.
Perfect. Okay, so no surprise, Pantheon still 100% pick ban. Gotten through once. He won once.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Not getting through. Why would you?
Yeah.
Maybe Riot could have taken a couple extra passes on that one.
Yeah.
Funny how that works out. Funny how this keeps happening. Well, Riot releases new and reworked champions, and they keep having to be permabanned because they keep getting buffed, and then whoops, we went too far.
Yep, it happens quite a bit. Syndra obviously really flex. Like, we've seen her have great success in the mid lane and the bot lane. Again, the bot lane, I feel like it's because she's very safe in lane. You can farm from a decent distance. You can clear the wave really quickly. So you can get your support out of your lane and into the rest of the map, right? And the support player can do support things, roam with the jungle, and get all those objectives and that vision that seems to be so important. Like this tournament has all been about mid priority, it seems like.
Right. I will say this. Is Syndra a flex pick? Absolutely. Has it been a successful pick?
No.
Well, currently it's 2-9 with an 18% win rate. So I don't know that I would particularly touch that one. I think the one thing we really learned from this is that the mage bot meta that we were expecting has been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah.
The teams that leaned harder and harder on those those kind of mage bot picks tended to struggle compared to teams that focused on the Zayas and Kaisas and those kinds of more traditional carries.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately a lot of like what bot lane pairs work have to do with what supports are viable, right? And when you look at the supports that people are pairing, you're looking at champs with a lot of hard CC and a Nautilus. Gragas has been played a little bit in support. Rakan, Yuumi, like you have enough that can keep these marksmen safe. You'd rather have the damage because the games are going long enough.
Yep.
Of that scaling champ. So I think that's the one thing about the meta that I found to be particularly poignant is just that a lot of these mage bot laners just didn't do well. And a lot of the more traditional bot laners that we expected to struggle very much did. And so I expect teams to really shift accordingly when we talk about how that's going to go.
Yeah, I think a lot of these AD carries are so good at AD carry, like to just try and force them to play mages. Like it's a different play style. It's not their thing. Why would you do that? Because then generally you're putting like your mid or your top on like a Tristana or like a Corki or something. Like Corki, I guess, has kind of been a mid pick for long enough that it's like somewhat useful, but you're basically role swapping two of your players for no reason other than to get the support roaming, right? Which, depending on your support player has and hasn't worked to some level of or to some degree. The one thing that you touched on that I think is really interesting to me, at least, and the one thing that I wanted to kind of bring up was I don't understand why Xayah, Kaisa aren't pick banned 100% this tournament. Like, I honestly think those are the only two viable AD carries that we've seen. And they're the two AD carries that are like getting all the attention. They're getting the wins. They make the biggest impact on the game when they're played well, or in the case of the Kaisa by LWX when they're played not very well. But to me, at least, those two champions are the two champs that are like, okay, in terms of AD carry, like they're in their own tier, and they're the two AD carries that everybody should be playing, picking, prioritizing in this tournament.
I think it will be closer to 100% pick ban when we get to the next phase. I think that the pick rate for those champs accelerated as the group stage went on. I think people definitely started with some of those more mage picks and then realized that the people focused on the traditional carries were doing better. I think that, each of those champions, you look at Kaisa with a 74% pick ban rate, Xayah with a 76%. Those were among the highest. The only champions that were higher, obviously, Pantheon at 100%, Kiana at 88%, Renekton at 82%, who also holds the leader right now for highest win rate of champions with 5 or more games played at 83%. Yep. He's 10-2 right now. That's a pick. Expect a lot more people to start playing. Akali and Kale. So those are all very strong picks around them. And I think that, it really just comes down to, as far as like the bans go, I think it always feels bad to ban bot lane champs because most bot laners have very similar pools. And so you're kind of playing against your own interest to a certain extent. And it feels like there are other positions you need to prioritize in terms of lane matchups right now. Getting a favorable solo lane matchup is so important in order for to find success. So I think that the reason that they're slipping a little bit more than we would expect, given their relative power level, is that bot lane in general is not something that we're seeing a huge priority in from the ban phase. We're looking a lot more, if you look at like most banned champions, it's these solo laners. And I think it's going to continue to be solo laners because I think that getting the right matchup and even maybe arguably avoiding the wrong matchup for your solo laners is such a critical part of getting ahead in this meta.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I guess, it's called the pick ban rate, but it's more just the pick rate. I would like to see those pick rates at least rise because I agree. I don't think that you should be wasting a ban on them. But definitely you should be trying to pick one of them every single time. And if you don't have first pick, maybe you ban the Rakan. So then that way, because if I had first pick, I think I'd be trying to lock in Rakan almost quite a bit. And then you can get the Xayah, or even if you have to go with a different ADC, well, then they don't have the Rakan Xayah combo, right? Or if they don't pick Rakan or Xayah, then with your first two, you can take Rakan Xayah, as that's a very safe lane. There's not a whole lot that they can. It's not like they can counter you in any like incredibly significant way with the bot lane pick of their own, and it allows you to kind of get some more information before you put in your solo laners and all that sort of stuff. But
I mean, I don't, it's one of those things where I wouldn't be surprised if we see people prioritizing their jungle a little bit more moving forward as well. Lee Sin has just not been. Gragas has done very well, and Lee Sin very much hasn't. Elise has been fine. But a lot more like if you can grab the Kiana, for instance. The Olaf has actually done surprisingly well when we've seen people bring it out. I would not be surprised if we saw more of that coming up, especially from a guy like Yankos. That seems like a great way to get him out of his funk. Would like to see that kind of thing. So that'll be kind of interesting. I will say the 5 champions, for those interested, with the highest win rates with 5 or more games played right now. Renekton and LeBlanc tied at number 1 with 83.3%. Leona following them at 77.8%. She's 7-2 right now. Then you'd have to go to Yasuo at 71.4%, Xayah at 66.7%, and then it looks like it would be Gragas at 62.5%. So those are the champs that we're seeing the most that are all doing very well. And I would not be surprised to see those continue to be the heavy priorities as we move forward, because all of those champs are champs that, with the exception of, I'd say, probably Renekton, like are champs that you can find a lot of safe combos for. Renekton, you want to make sure that you have the laning matchup that you want. He's very good in a lot of compositions, but not every composition. But he's very good against a lot of things that people want to play, which is why he's getting banned out as much, and why it's doing so well when it does get through.
Yeah, and it's been interesting because he actually did really poorly like the first day or two. Maybe it was plans.
Plans, I think plans were a little bit more.
He was going. It was rough for him, but then as soon as the actual group stage started, he started doing incredibly well. Now, whether that's just a discrepancy in the quality of the top laners, and you're starting to see a lot more solo laners that can pilot him more effectively, or like you said, just the fact that he's so good against so many of the picks that seem to be in the meta right now, I think it's probably a little bit of a combination of both. Where he's really found his niche, and the clock's back.
To put a number on that, in the play-ins, he was played 16 times, went 13 times, went 5-8 with a 38.5% win rate. So, I agree. Like that is a huge gap, and I do think that it is something you can attribute to skill discrepancy, because I think a lot of these top laners we're seeing are just too good to take a lane bully that is as strong as Renekton is right now. And if you don't have a very clear counter, you give that to someone like the Shy, good luck.
Yeah,
like that's a different level of threat compared to some of these teams in the play-ins that we're trying to utilize that pick. who I don't think are as lane dominant, very rarely find those kinds of leads, and therefore are much less likely to be able to build off of them.
Definitely. Overall, I think that we will see a little bit, what I'm excited to see actually, and kind of this will segue a little bit here into our quarterfinal matchups, but now that we have best of 5 rather than best of 1, you can kind of experiment with leaving something open. Like you can leave an OP pick open and go, can you play this? And can we beat you? Because if a team, for example, were to show like, hey, we have a strategy that beats Pantheon, we don't need to ban Pantheon, we can just beat him this way, then that might make other teams go, oh shit, we have to ban Pantheon against you because you're not going to ban it. Because even if like you can beat it, right? So that would be, that's something that I see is potentially interesting, at least in this first round. In a game 1, I think if you're going to do this, it has to be in a game 1, but you leave an OP pick up and see if you can contend with it in some other way. Maybe get an OP pick of your own out there. But I think other than Pantheon, there's really not too many that are like this highly prioritized, right?
Look, in the words of Darkest Dungeon, overconfidence is a slow but insidious killer. Don't leave Pantheon up. Don't do it. No, stop it. I see, like I see you, IG. Don't do it. I don't want to see. It's not worth it. It is almost never worth it. That bluff at this level of play, these teams are too good. You can get away with that against Clutch Gaming. You cannot get away with it against SK Telecom. Do not give Faker Pantheon, is what I'm saying here. I appreciate the idea. Maybe see, like you could try to let the Kiana through, I guess. Like even though that pick has been such an interesting flex, you know, that's the thing that I think we're going to see a lot more of is looking at champions like the Tristana, like the Kiana, like the Kale, these like triple flex picks. You know, even Ezreal was played in the mid lane once in this main event group stage. Like we are seeing teams with versatility take advantage of that. And I think that that's where you find room to play around. It's like, okay, well, what if we force them to play this in a different position, right? Like we think they really want to bring Kiana to the jungle. Well, let's pick a hard Kiana counter in the jungle. Can your solo laners play it? That's something I would like to see because I think that is an easier trap to pull teams into because teams believe that they have these kinds of flexibility available to you and you can catch them in a corner if they're not ready for that.
Right. Like you can go, okay, well, you know, obviously you can play Kiana solo lane or jungle, but, you know, now that especially that this is a best of 5 and we have a full week to prepare for it, we've done our homework and your jungle actually kind of sucks on Kiana. So let's take really hard lane counters and we'll force your jungle to play it unless you want an awful matchup in lane, and then we'll see how good you actually are on it. So yeah, that's where I'm really excited now that we have the best of 5s. I prefer League in a best of format. I don't like best of 1s. We were talking about this a little bit before the show. Like I would much prefer to see group stage be a double elimination bracket where you seed all the teams. In the even if you just seeded all the teams 1 through 16, but even if you're going to do this group thing, seed them, and then have it be so that, you know, 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3, winners play each other. Winner of that goes out, gets into the bracket. And then, you know, loser of that versus winner of the lower game gets out and into the bracket. I think that would be better just because I think League, there's so much strategy involved with picks, bans, adaptation that having those extra games to prove you really are the better team works. But I do think overall, like maybe, I think, you know, other than maybe Fnatic, Royal Never Give Up, and I want to say Liquid in my heart, but I know I can't say it. Like, I think all the best teams did get out. So yeah, I can't really complain.
But it would have been better had we seen these best of 3s. Like, no matter what, like, the competition's better. There are a lot of things we can get into the format just because it's been a little long. I have said this on the GGWP, the podcast that I'm on. So, like, if you want to hear my thoughts on that, best of 3s are empirically better. I will say one more pick for people to watch. Twisted Fate.
Yes.
Banned 14 times. 14 bans.
Globals are so strong. Like, here's the thing, right? When you have that TF ability to just pop up on the map, like, oh, there's a fight that's advantageous for us. Oh, wait, TF exists, and you have him. Damn it. Like, that is a thing that does happen, and people seem to forget about it. And I mean, it totally makes sense to me that, you know, especially with some of the mid laners in this tournament, how good they are on that champion. Because, you know, TF, Ori, like, there's some champions that if you've been playing League of Legends for a long time, you have hundreds and hundreds of games on, like, period. Like you've just been playing because they've always been in and out of the meta, right?
Yeah. I think that there are certain teams that had it banned against them all the time, right? Because it only had a 30% ban rate. Like most teams were not afraid of those globals, even though they are as strong as you noted. But Fnatic wasn't allowed to play that champ. Every team that played against Fnatic had that as a very early ban against them. So clearly, they think the Nemesis has a really good Twisted Fate. Do you think that who are they playing in the quarterfinals? They're playing Fun Plus. Does Fun Plus have a really great Twisted Fate counter? Are they going to be able to ban Twisted Fate 5 games? Probably not. So eventually, I think picks like that, like whenever you see it, like 100% of Fnatic's games, that pick was banned. 100, like people banned it against G2 a lot. Like it seems like these European teams scrim together and all seem to really enjoy that Twisted Fate pick, but no one else has done it. So either someone's going to learn it during this week-long break, or these are some pocket picks that Europe will come in. Baker played it once. He was the one who got, I think, a game on it. It was the only game that was played. It did well. It won the game. It wasn't the pick that won it. Door. Yeah, that was
only at Worlds.
Only at Worlds, man.
All right. So let's hop into this first series. So the first series that we're going to watch is going to be Griffin versus IG. I think this is a really interesting series, but as the IG fan of the house, the resident IG fan right now, terrified. I'd like you're terrified.
I hate this so much. This is the worst. This Griffin team's really good, and they're really good in a way that's like the strengths and weaknesses of both of those teams are going to be really interesting to clash with. Because I think the Shy is just straight up better than the Sword. It's in Sword right now, 100%. The Shy's playing out of his mind. Sword still looks like a guy who I'm not 100% sure why he's starting over who they had before. Like there's still a little bit there. But Tarzan's better than whatever jungler we're going to throw out there. Rookie versus Chovy is going to be really darn close. And Viper is just so good in that bot lane, and Lance too. Like that bot lane's just more consistent. And I think that's the problem is like, if IG's going to win, they're going to win because the solo laners were able to carry the day. But Chovy is still really good. And I think Tarzan could keep the Shy at least in check. And the Shy is someone who tends to play greedy. He tends to play aggressive. He always believes that he's the best player on the Rift. And that's exploitable. And Tarzan is a guy who can exploit it. Yeah. And if this game goes even into the 25-minute mark, I think Viper is more likely to take over a game than Jackie Love is right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Like, I think these teams are close. Like, I think from a talent perspective, like, these are both very mechanically talented teams with a lot of firepower and a lot to like. This is not a knock on IG. It's not even the reverse jinx that I will be accused of having this be. Though if it happens to work that way, I'm totally fine with it. But at the end of the day, I just don't think our jungles are strong. I say our. I don't think IG's jungle is strong enough that they're going to be able to carry the day against Griffin. I think this is a 3-2 in Griffin's favor. I think it's a close series. I think it's one of those. I always measure how heartbreaking a series is by how long of a walk I have to go on after to clear my head. Like the Falcons was a 5 miles in a snow loss after that 28-3. This would be a good couple miles just kind of shaking my head. But I think that's where we're heading. That's how this feels.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I had it at 3-1 Griffin because I kind of saw the same thing that you did with I think that Tarzan is probably just going to be camping up top because even though I agree, I think the Shy is a significantly better top laner than Sword, which for some reason they're playing. I can't remember the other guy's name, but he was like seemed way more competent. It's killing me that I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, I think that Tarzan will be able to kind of keep the Shy at bay, maybe catch him out being a little bit too greedy. I think Chowie versus Rookie is going to be basically a wash, more or less. Like I think, they're both really, really talented players. So it's kind of a coin flip who comes out on top in that matchup. And the bot lane, like you said, Viper's just been so impressive this tournament that I think that ultimately you have to give the late game advantage with them. The only thing that I could see working really for IG in their favor is how Griffin really doesn't like to play very fast. Like they like to play very, very slow. And so if IG can kind of get an early advantage or two, and they can snowball that early game kind of out of where Griffin feels comfortable playing into the mid and late game. And, IG, I think, is a good enough team that if they do enter the mid game with a significant enough advantage, they'll be able to close out. But yeah, 3-1, 3-2, I think, for Griffin is.
The Shy will have at least
tough.
one game. The Shy's going to have one game where he hard carries.
Yeah.
I think Rookie has one game where he hard carries.
That's fair.
And I think the 3 games go the Griffin's way. I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I can see you being right on that. But the thing is that this is probably the series I feel least confident in my prediction, because I feel like, the Shy or Rookie could easily hard carry 2 games. And then that's just.
Yeah, that would be great. I sure would like that. I sure would like to believe in that. I will say this. I didn't go into their series against KT Rolster in the quarterfinals last year feeling great. Like, a lot of the problems that I was pointing out here, I pointed out there as well. IG came at their best when best of 5s came around, and they were pushed to it. I sure hope that happens again. I don't think that it will. I don't think this team is as sharp as last year's was. I think they've been more inconsistent throughout most of the year.
Yeah.
But I sure would like to be
family issues and
Rookie had a lot going on, and the
he looks really
stuff,
good now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I never had a doubt. Rookie's really, really good. I love that he's playing as well as he is, because he gets to start making an argument of where he ranks among the Chinese mid laners now, because I don't think Doinby has looked like the guy that we expected him to look like at this tournament. Knight is not appearing at this Worlds, and so that leaves Rookie. And Rookie right now, of those 3, is proving that on the biggest stage, on that international stage, he's the one that is living up to what we believe he is capable of.
Yeah.
That's going to be my propaganda for my IG boys. But I can't in good conscience make the prediction in their favor, but I sure hope I'm wrong. I really would love to be wrong.
Fnatic, Fun plus Phoenix.
3-1 Fnatic.
That's exactly what I have. I don't think Fun plus Phoenix is a good team. And I think that Fnatic is a super awful stylistic matchup for them because of how early and aggressive Fnatic likes to play, and how Fun plus Phoenix, I mean, they've even said it in the interviews. Like, they're just like, oh, we have the best team fight. Well, you're down 5,000 gold. You're not going to win that team fight. Like, no team left in the tournament is that bad.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is that, like, you look at Tian versus Broxo, like, that's not a matchup that's going to go your way right now. Brox has been so good at the objective control and making sure that his solo laners are there. Like, if Gimgoon was playing better, maybe I would feel a little bit better about it, because Bwipo, I think, is clearly the weak link on this team. He's had some games that are just, like, I have no idea what he was doing. But, the spot lane just looks too strong, and I think that while I think Doinby is a better mid laner than Nemesis, I don't think he's that much better than Nemesis.
Nemesis is impressed me.
He's a good player.
The thing that scares me is Hylissang's Leona. I don't ever want to see that again.
I don't know.
Pike is fantastic. Play Pike. Stay away from Leona, please, and then we'll be okay. You play Leona, that's the game you're losing.
I have no problem with that if it keeps Reckless out of a passive funk, because that's how they lose to me. How they lose is if Reckless falls back on bad habits of, I don't want to lose on this international stage. Hylissang empowers the best of Reckless, even if his individual performance isn't always on point, when he is playing those aggressive supports. I agree. I would love for him to play Pike this entire time as well. I think that Fun plus Phoenix would be stupid to let him play Pike. I think that should be a perma-ban pick if I'm Fun plus.
But then if they do that, so what are they going to do? They're going to perma-ban Pike and TF?
I think you bet. Yeah, Pike, TF. I guess you have to ban Pantheon if you're on red side. Yeah.
Good luck.
What else are you gonna do? I don't know. I mean, you could let Nemesis play. I just don't think you can give Hylissang Pike. I'm more afraid of Hylissang's Pike than I am of Nemesis's Twisted Fate. I say, having not seen Nemesis's Twisted Fate and not knowing why people have been banning it like the plague.
I feel like if it's that permaban, like, it's got to be, there's a reason for it, right? So,
as opposed to Hylissang's Pike, though, like that, we have the tangible proof on stage.
Yeah.
Very clearly works. I would rather, if we're going to talk about leaving a pick open, that I can't think of a better time than game one. Leave the Twisted Fate open. See if it is as dangerous. Yeah.
See if they even pick it, right? Maybe you leave the TF open, but you orchestrate some sort of composition that can deal with TF. Like maybe you take a Shen in the top lane, something that can match the roam.
Right. Something that could really punish the laning phase. I think there are options. I think you can game plan around it and make it so that you really don't want to pick Twisted Fate, or at the very least, make them wait until the second round of bans, and then you can sneak the Twisted Fate ban in. Like you don't have to do it in the first wave, if you kind of position accordingly.
Especially if you don't pick a mid necessarily, because then, or if you pick a really hard counter to a TF as your mid. Like Kassadin is like the traditional really hard TF counter, and he hasn't been. It's not really a pick.
It's not a pick, but Doinby's Kassadin is good. Just saying, Doinby really likes to roam.
That would be cool. We saw TF Kassadin mid lane. Like, that would be like a season 2 throwback.
I know, right? I want to root for that. For sure.
I'd be down for that. Make it happen, guys. Make it happen. But yeah, ultimately, I think Fnatic is going to walk away with this series. I mean, this isn't even like I don't even care about the West anymore. Like, if Europe loses, Korea loses, China, I don't care who wins at this point. It's just I don't think FunPlus Phoenix is a very good team. Prove me wrong.
Well, the North American dead inside. I don't care who wins.
I don't care who wins anymore.
It's all meaningless to me.
This is all for naught. This is all for naught.
All by myself.
Good God. Why do you do this to me, NA? Why do you do this? The second day had some interesting games. Well, not really, actually. The last series is interesting. SKT Splice, I don't think is interesting at all. I think that's a 3-0.
I think it's a 3-0. Norskaren tweeted out after the pick had gone through, it's been a good run. And I think that's the mentality. Look, be like
honest about it.
Be like Misfits. You have nothing to lose. Throw some weird stuff out there. If you get 3-0'd, you get 3-0'd. If you win any game, people are going to be so hyped. And that's all you need to do. You win one Splice, you will be regarded as heroes. And that'll be the last thing that people remember of the Splice brand. That's a cool way to go out. You're not going to win the series. No. Maybe you get one.
Maybe.
They won't, but they might.
I really doubt it. Like, I just don't. I think SKT is one of those teams. Like, Faker reminds me of LeBron. LeBron James from like.
Yes, I have LeBron James.
he doesn't try in the regular season on defense. It seems like he's just out there. He'll get his points. He'll do his thing, but like he doesn't really care. Then the playoffs come, and LeBron is a different animal. And then the finals come, and the man can break his hand and still be the best player on the court, and no one knows he has a broken hand for the whole series. Like, it's insane. Right. And I think that's kind of what Faker does. Like, he's been playing so long, and he's like, group stage, we'll like turn it up a little bit now. I guess we kind of have to win. Like, these games look good. And then as these brackets go through, like, I think we're going to see just insane. Splice is doomed. Just good luck. Good luck, guys. I wish you the best.
I wish you the best. Yeah. Look, man, have fun. Have fun out there, guys.
Yeah. This is a go team go kind of moment for them. Just try not to hate each other after the series because you're all going to feed. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. Just deal with it.
Yeah. I look forward to memeing on ProView, bringing out the notepad, what is happening, like whatever.
Do you have that?
I think they have ProView. I don't know if
you have it because I don't have it. I've been like debating on whether I should get it, but
no, because anything that would be truly meme worthy gets out anyway, right? Yes. Like it'll go viral, because somebody owns it. I found that it's too much to kind of try to keep track of it once, and I just don't have the time to do like the hard-hitting league analysis. Turns out when you're the lead editor of a whole site, your time gets occupied with things other than just single game analysis. I can't. There's no way.
Something I've been like doing a bit more of recently, and it's just so time-consuming. Like I'll spend like 10 minutes on the picks and bans sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I going way into too much depth on this game? But it helps to get back into it a little bit because I've been kind of out of the saddle for League for probably about a couple of years before I started getting back into it this season. So
it's the best way. If you can keep up on drafts, you can keep up with most of the game. Like you can kind of you have a good enough idea of how pieces fit, then you'll be in the right spot, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the last series, which I think is the best series. I think this is the series that a lot of people are going to say, oh, G2's got this. But I think with the way that Damwon played in this group stage and how good Canyon, Naguri, and Showmaker are, I think this is a 5-game series, and I honestly I think it's a coin flip on who wins.
I do think it's a 5-game series. I feel a little bit more confidently that you do that G2 is going to win. And I think that at the end of the day, the versatility of what they bring to the table, just the sheer volume of flex picks, what Perks is able to do in the bot lane is just, I don't know how Nuclear is supposed to deal with that.
Yeah,
It's really the biggest thing. That's not going to work out well. Like, that bot lane for G2 is just too good. They'll always have that lane to play around. Showmaker is great, but so is Caps.
Right.
Nuguri is great, but so is Wonder. I think that if you're Damwon, like, you're going to win by playing, you have to assume your 2v2s are better because right now Yankos has looked to be a bit exploitable. That's the play. But you have to snowball those early wins, and that's hard to do against G2. And G2 has proven in this tournament that they can come back from that kind of thing if they absolutely need to. I think that there will be one happy little accident game that G2 will pull out there where they just try too much or, go way too hard on an early play that just snowballs against them and whatever, because that's what G2 does. I think they'll have one game where either Nuguri or Showmaker will just go ham. But I think that G2's the better team. And I think that G2 looked like the better team and came out of a better group. Up until those last 2 games, for which we have reasons to believe that G2 would not be as sharp there as they would in their other matches. I have faith in them. I think they win this series. But I do think it's going to be close because I think that all G2 series are going to be close because of the way that G2 exists as a team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, I definitely have faith in G2. I think they can do it. But Kenyon impressed me so much in this group stage that with Yankos kind of being a little bit off kilter so far that I don't know. I mean, I'm super hyped on this Canyon guy. Like, I'm a full believer right now. I think this guy is like one of the best junglers I've seen, period. I mean, he's just, it seems like he's always in the right place at the right time to do the right thing. And his mechanical execution is beautiful. Like, he's one of the few people I've seen in this tournament play Lee Sin and make that champion look like it's broken. Like, everybody else just kind of sucks on Lee, like you were alluding to earlier. Win rate, not great, but you don't want that guy playing Lee Sin. And his Rek'Sai is really good. And it's like everything that he's touched has looked fantastic. And you're like, how do you beat this guy? Like, I mean, there's a reason, obviously, that he's number 1 on the EU West ladder already. Like, you can just tell his mechanics are on point. His game knowledge is on point. He has great synergy, I think, with all of his lanes. Like, I think when Nuclear and Barrel need his help, he's there. When he can get Showmaker or Nuguri an advantage, he's there. Or if Nuguri's being his greedy, like, klepto cull on a losing lane matchup self, like, he'll protect him. Like, he's in the right spot. It's just, so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to go the full 5 games. I'm sitting at like 55-45 G2 though. Like, very, like, this slimmest of margins.
I've got this, I think, into 65-35. And again, it's just because I think that if G2 played to their best, all 5, if you guaranteed me G2 will not troll any drafts, the G2 will not overextend for no reason just to see if they can, I would say this is a 3-1 because I think they are the better team. I think that it's a question of does G2 get out of their own way? And I think that they will, ultimately. But, look, if I'm wrong, it will be because Korea is the best region in the world again, and 2018 will have proven itself to be a blip in what is otherwise unprecedented dominance of this region for any game that isn't StarCraft 2. That's the level we're hitting if they win 7 out of 8, right? That's what it would be if a Korean team won. 6 out of 7, because Season 2 went to Taiwan. So 6 of 7 would still be pretty darn good, especially if 4 of those are Faker, which I think that it will. I think that's still the team I think is the best team in the world right now. I think. Are you with me on that? Yeah. If you had to pick a champion today, I pick SKT, and I don't hesitate.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I think it's just betting against Faker is stupid. It's literally to go back to my LeBron analogy. Like, betting against LeBron is stupid. Like, he can have nobody. Like Faker has had nobody next to him for every single one of his world championships. Basically, he's had like pylons out there, and they look dominant.
I mean,
So
this is a team that is so good that Mata is on the bench and no one's arguing with that decision.
yeah, oh,
Like Mata,
Effort's fantastic.
yeah, he's really good. But like Mata is like again a first ballot Hall of Famer whenever that happens, and everyone's like, yeah, it makes sense. There's that much talent on that roster, and crazy. Faker might be the third best player on this team right now. Like that's the thing that's crazy is that Teddy and Effort and Klid are all playing out of their minds.
Klid's really, really good too.
Klid is so good, and I think so. It's like Faker might be. Like, when Faker was the third best player on your team, you're in a league on another level, and I think that that's
I think in the regular season you were right. I think the playoff Faker is a different animal, though.
I look at any point in time, Faker could be the best player in the world. I still believe in that, but if we're looking at the 6 games that he's played, he hasn't been the one that's the answer's been it's been the bot lane. And whether you give Teddy or Effort more of the credit there, I think comes down to personal preference. And it's been Klid. Oh. Those are the things that are carrying the game. Faker has been a really nice secondary asset. But, I mean, he has been mostly supportive. His Camille game was his best from a KDA perspective. He went 3-2-10. Like, he's not the one carrying everything. Outside of that one Tristana game, which... if you ask the people in my Discord, would have said that was mean, but it wasn't even like he wasn't the one putting out most of that damage. He was on cleanup patrol, but it was the initiation. Except against Huni,
I feel like he was like personally like chasing down Huni, being like, "You will die."
Huni doesn't need to be chased down. Huni's happy for the fight. He's ready. That's just the Huni way.
Oh, that's true.
Faker heard Huni say, "I can't wait to play Faker in groups in SKT," and then was like,
"Oh, really?
Oh, you do now? Interesting. Let's see if you still feel that way when this is all said and done."
Newsflash, he didn't.
No. Spoiler alert. Clutch
spoiler alert.
Did not.
Clutch had an awful time. They did not have a good time. All right. Well, with all that being said, I think we've kind of gone over everything in pretty good detail. But, as the lead editor of Unicorn, to kind of close the show off, based on the betting odds right now, which I have no idea what they are.
Yeah. I actually should.
Who do you bet on? If you wanted to put one bet on the quarterfinals to make some money, where's your bet?
On the quarterfinals or for the outbreak?
No. On the 4 quarterfinal series.
Okay. On the quarterfinals, right now, Fnatic are underdogs at 2.25 against FunPlus.
Who makes your odds?
I'm not allowed to answer that question. But I agree with you for the record. I too will be betting on Fnatic in this.
Okay.
I think it's the easiest tip I've ever made.
That's crazy. Okay, guys. Well, you heard it here. You want to make some money? Go. Run. Do it now.
Yeah, that seems like a good one. By the way, to give you an idea of where the outrates are right now, SK Telecom 1.83 favorites to win this tournament. They are more than even odds to win. That does not happen with outrights. Griffin is the second closest, by the way, at 6.0.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So you can make a $5 profit for every $1 you bet with Griffin, or you can make an 83-cent profit on every $1 you bet on SKT.
That's nuts. With 8 teams left in the tournament, too? Yeah, that's crazy.
Dude, SKT's numbers are out of this world. Outside of that one weird loss, they're on another level.
Yeah, well, that was just like a perfect counter pick. And again, like I think that might have been one of the best Nemesis games we've ever seen.
Look, all hail the Demon King. All hail Boxing with God. All hail Faker. May he reign until someone can unseat him accordingly. Pray for my IG boys. I would love to have the IG SKT series. I feel like that would be fun as hell.
That would be a really fun series. I'll be rooting for them in that series. I actually like how IG plays more than I like how Griffin plays. So like just from a purely like which team I enjoy watching more, I will probably be rooting for your IG. I will be rooting for your IG guys. So you'll have at least one more fan on your side that time. But yeah, guys, you heard it here. This guy, lead editor at Unicorn. Go there now, place your bet on Fnatic, and then, send me a percentage of the profit you make as like a thank you.
Please, I love this site. And while you're there, be sure to follow at Unicorn Co., which is the site, which is obviously the website. We have a lot of great writers doing a lot of great esports content, whether it be League of Legends, CSGO, Fortnite, etc. Dave, in fact, you've written for us in the past.
I have.
So if people want to learn more about Halo Infinite or see our Fortnite power rankings, Dave wrote both of those up. And you can go check that out. You wide-eyed there, like you forgot that you wrote those articles. Like, I don't know what to think that one. But you did, and they're good, and you should check them out, people at home. You should also check out me at Chase Wassenaar. You can follow at the GGWP, that's the Geeks and Gaming Worldwide podcast, which I host with former LEC caster Pyrotechnics and amateur caster Mad Magical. And of course, K-pop Shenanigans, which is the K-pop podcast I run with a few friends of mine, all about all of the crazy antics over in that scene. So I jumped the gun on the plugs, but you brought Unicorn. I know it's crazy. My boss had to come into the Discord recently to tell everyone like, oh yeah, Chase is taking a break, and everyone's like, Chase is taking a day off. I too am not sure how to deal with that. But this is a brave new world we live in. I'm going to try to be a hooligan. But thank you so much for having me on and giving me an excuse to talk League stuff and actually share my thoughts on things rather than just editing other people's. So appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for making the time in that insanely busy schedule of yours to come on and chat. Guys, this has been I think this has been our longest Rift Talks episode to date, almost twice as long as any normal episode. So if you've sat through this whole thing, thank you. We love you, and we'll catch you next week. Take care.